This National Palliative Care Week, we're visiting Calvary St Hospital to speak with Hannah Rottier. Thanks, Hannah, for your time today. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, Tassie born and bred, and maybe how you just got into the organisation?
Yeah, sure. So, Tassie born and bred. I've been nursing, so I've been a registered nurse for almost 15 years, and I've worked across the state. So, I started my nursing career in Launceston, and I worked on a medical oncology ward for my first ward.
Cool.
And then I have worked various spots, Queenstown on the west coast of Tassie.
Pretty remote.
Pretty remote. Pretty remote. Takes about 4 hours to get anywhere.
Yeah.
But that was a really good basis for the start of my nursing. I got introduced to lots of different things and being independent pretty early on in my career. And then I did quite a bit of aged care, some aged care management, ended up back here, which is, a palliative / medical oncology, like where I started my nursing.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And what made you sort of get into nursing? Like, what was it you sort of already knew you were going to do that, or it sort of came out of nowhere? Or?
Well, I think as I was growing up, I used to have a lot of people say, you'd be like, you should do nursing.
Yeah, okay.
I had a close family member that I helped care for, and I think that's where it came from.
Yeah.
And then I didn't really sort of consider until I was about 17, 18, and then haven't looked back.
Yeah, jumped in the deep end and
Yeah.
loved it ever since?
Yeah.
Big
But
passion.
I am now, so I've been at Gibson Unit for 5 years.
Yep.
Really where my passion is, palliative care, and we're lucky enough to, meet people from the beginning of their journeys, sometimes unfortunately to the end, but we build really beautiful relationships.
Yeah, I can imagine that being really rewarding.
Yeah.
You obviously got a bit of a passion for palliative care and a bit of a story how you got into it. What does sort of a day in life look like for you here? Obviously, I imagine it's quite diverse, but...
It is quite diverse, I guess, because we, like I said, I manage the day unit, so patients who are having, treatment for various sorts of cancer. And then on to like inpatients. But like I said, we're lucky enough to see our patients through.
Yeah.
So like on an average day, I'm quite heavily involved clinically with the team. So I spend a lot of my time on the floor.
Brilliant.
Get to know the patients and their families really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you find that sort of like a must for you to really still stay connected with patients? And
So I certainly didn't get into management to get off the floor. I sort of fell into it. And it was really because I was working with such a good team. The team I've still got now, and they're what get me through.
Makes a big difference, doesn't it?
A huge difference.
Yeah. And how big's your team?
I've probably got 19 staff maybe.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Very solid team.
Yeah.
Love that. Through your time here at Gibson, what sort of one lesson that you've sort of taken away that you sort of use, whether it's inspiration or just sort of a guiding star throughout your work?
We learn a lot from our patients. So I think working in this sort of environment, it really does highlight that life is short, shorter for some than others. And I think it's just, living each day to your best and, doing those things that you might, you're not sure about, but then think, what, we only got one life. It's, good to get to do the things you want to do while you've got time, because you never know when your time is up.
Yeah. And some of the stories that we hear working in the community is everyone's sort of journey or quality of life is different in regards to like what they want to do. Some people want to be out and about and in the garden, and some people just want to be alone with a book. And I'd imagine you sort of come across a few different situations and requests that you sort of find yourself in.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other thing is to which might sound a bit cliche, but it is to like really appreciate the small things in life. Because when people have, you know, a terminal illness, they might not be able to do as much, but they do often start to single in on the, you know, small things in life, you know, like, you know, the sun coming through the clouds, or, you know, some like beautiful, to appreciate the beauty that is around, and appreciate those people that are around you is what's important, I think.
Things you can easily take for granted when you get them every day, but then when you're in that sort of position, you sort of realise how important they are. So I'm sure you like have some really great stories from being here for many years, but is there any one story that sort of sticks out, or one experience that you like sort of reflect on quite often?
Well, there's a lot. It's very hard to like pinpoint stories, but in terms of like I said, we get to know our patients really, really well over sometimes many years. And we had a patient who had been coming to our day unit for many years and then transitioned to, unfortunately, have end-of-life care with us. And staff were really close to this patient. And he, probably in his last week of life, he brought the team together just behind us here and played the like piano accordion for the team. Amazing. And not a dry eye in the house. Like, it was just a very beautiful, beautiful moment. And it was like him giving back to the team, and just a really beautiful,
bit symbolic in regards to connection.
Really, really beautiful moment.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Great.
And there are things like that happen all the time. Like I said, it's hard to think of just one. There's a lot of special things that happen.
And then maybe just tell us a little bit about the palliative care team here, sort of like what you do and the size of your team and all the rest of that.
Yeah, so we've got a core group of staff that have sort of been here the whole time I've been here. You know, I think you have to be a special sort of person to work in palliative care, and I have the most beautiful team. And like I said, that's why I do what I do. You know, everyone who works here is just as passionate as I am about palliative care and providing that really good you know, time for our patients in the most vulnerable time of their lives. And then, you know, having all those open and honest conversations. Like, the team is really, you know, experienced and are beautiful with the patients and their families, and the patients are all very grateful for that.
And you sort of feel that when, you know, we walked in today, you can feel the compassion, I think, from every staff member, from the first person that you walk through the door. You do get that sense of not just welcoming, but almost like you're a part of something as soon as you walk through the door, and you get that straight away from the signs that are around and some of the work that obviously the patients have done and you've got on display, to the words that you have on display as well. And I think that's really lovely to sort of have that as soon as you walk in. I think after working, you know, in lots of spots around the state, I think St John's Hospital in general, but certainly Gibson Unit, it doesn't feel like a hospital. Like, it feel comfortable when you walk in. And not saying you don't feel that at other places, but it just, you know, the moment I came here for an interview, it felt different. Like, it's welcoming. You know, we've got beautiful gardens, and it's just not as clinically stuck, or, you know. Absolutely. So just talking about like safe spaces and being able to have those sort of conversations, you've probably been around patients having those, I guess some people would say, awkward conversation. How do you sort of work with that, and how do you sort of enable people to have those sort of conversations and make sure that they feel, you know, comfortable to talk about what can sometimes be difficult but needed sort of conversations with their family and friends, and obviously your team as well?
Definitely. I think it is just, it's essential that someone, you know, not only someone facing a, you know, terminal diagnosis, but people have those conversations anyway. And I think it's about flipping that around for the community, in that, like, it's not you know, it's not scary. It doesn't have to be a scary conversation. And I think in terms of the team, you know, like I said, they're all well versed in having those conversations, but it's like the junior staff will be having those conversations, you know, early in their time here, so that they build up the confidence to bring them up.
Be exposed by it a little bit.
So yeah, and it's just being comfortable when the patients and the family often aren't as comfortable to just you yourself be comfortable to talk about, you know, the palliative care side of things, like what are your goals, you know, what are your goals in the time that you do have left? Because for some it might be some time, sometimes it's a short time, but it's getting clear on what their personal goals are.
Yeah.
A few days, or, you know, they want to go down to sit by the wharf, or, you know, we try and facilitate what their wishes are and really delve into that, what do you really want to do, and how do you want to spend your time, and making sure that it's quality time that they're, you know, able to have with their loved ones, and trying to facilitate that. Yeah, just the importance of, you know, unfortunately you see when patients come in and sometimes it's too late to have those conversations, and we just want to encourage people to have those conversations early, you know. We should be having these conversations even if you're well with your family about what's important to you. This National Palliative Care Week, Palliative Care Tasmania is actually running a campaign called Have an Awkward Conversation, and it's really around, you might have seen it before, but it is sort of promoting advanced care planning and filling out an advanced care directive, and the value of having those conversations early and being able to, as awkward as they can be, the earlier and often that you have them, the more that your family know, and you know, the better that your journey, no matter what stage is, can be. And also, Tony kind of gave us a bit of a tour around here, and you've got some really lovely spaces that are sort of made to have those conversations and sort of encourage people again to feel safe, feel comfortable and welcomed to open up a little bit. Absolutely love that. So obviously we do a bit of work with the Palliative Care Tasmania, does a bit of work with the Gibson Unit, but how do you see the partnership with Palliative Care Tasmania? I think it's pretty special. Like, we've got some links there directly. And certainly when I first came to Gibson Unit, the person who's managing here now works for you guys, and he's a close friend of mine. So on a personal front, but I just feel very supported by Palliative Care Tasmania. They are really big supporters of Gibson Unit, and I've certainly felt that over the years, and particularly over the last couple of years that I've been managing the ward. I feel valued, you know, by Palliative Care Tasmania for the work that we do. You know, I could contact and we could arrange training and that sort of thing. I think we work well together.
Absolutely. And I think when we connect, especially through National Palliative Care Week, it's always refreshing to come here, and although it's generally for a short amount of time because your team is quite busy, and not everyone can always make it to an afternoon tea, but it is always lovely when we come in here and, you know, have 30 minutes of your time and not necessarily even talk about the work that you're doing, but just to connect on a human level. It's always really refreshing to meet the team again and see that what they're doing, and obviously your job's quite special and quite unique. You deal with a lot of emotions, obviously daily, whether that be with the patient or with your team. How do you sort of manage that and handle that?
Like I said before, we're actually a really close team. We're all friends, so
makes a big difference.
It makes a huge difference. So I think we have learnt over the years to really tune into each other and be. You know, we often don't even need to say anything. If we're not coping, we often show signs and someone will pick up on it, and we can deal with it that way. You know, we do social things outside of work as well, which is really helpful for the team, where not one bit of work is mentioned. You know, just by, not as a directive, but it just happens that we we actually enjoy each other's company.
Yep.
And it's really good to just let your hair down and just do something outside of work.
Yeah.
So that helps. And like I said before, yeah, humour is a huge part of our coping strategies.
Yeah.
And obviously there's a time and place, but like I said, patients often enjoy a bit of humour.
Yeah.
You know, if it's appropriate.
Absolutely.
And certainly behind the scenes, that's how we get through every day. Is, you know, we don't take ourselves too seriously.
Yeah.
And can have a laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeping it as human as possible.
Yeah. But also in saying that, we also do cry. You know, there are times where, you know, it is really hard. You know, particularly, I guess, when, well, really at any time can be challenging emotionally. And I think, to say that we didn't cry would be a lie, because we are only human, and we sometimes have known patients for upwards of, you know, 3 years, so, or more. So I think it's just that mix of, you know, supporting each other.
Bit of balance.
Yeah.
I think what you said before was really, I can see how true that would be around lifting someone else up when it's not their day.
Yeah.
I think that is, that would be pretty key. I can imagine that sort of, everyone always wants to put their best foot forward every day, but that looks different for everybody on each day. And if you've got a team that sort of can recognise that without someone saying it, it's a really great team.
It's pretty special. Yeah.
Thank you for the interview, Hannah. I know we're coming sort of towards the end. I've just got a few more questions for you.
Sure.
One of them being, what is 3 things that you often see families or patients having conversation around, whether it's at end of life or through their palliative care journey?
I think a common theme is sometimes there's a bit of fear, and that not always, but quite often people have a lot of questions about what, you know, particularly in terms of end of life, what that's going to look like, whether that's the family asking what's that going to look like, how am I going to know, particularly if we're preparing for families to take their loved ones home for end of life care. So it's just about relaying the fears that people have and providing reassurance of the ways, all the ways that will keep patients comfortable when it comes to the days and the, you know, the last weeks and days of their life. That, you know, just assure them that we can keep them comfortable, and we can use all sorts of things to make that happen. That's probably pretty common. I think people reminisce a fair bit about, you know, loved ones and their stories, and we often get patients and their loved ones sharing stories, you know, perhaps how a husband and wife have met, you know, how you know how many years they've been married, and
all the important things.
You know, that they looked at each other across the dance floor, and just all these beautiful stories that we're lucky enough to hear.
Amazing.
And sometimes really funny stories and things, which is beautiful. Like I said, appreciate the small things, you know, like a beautiful weather, or you know, looking out the window and that sort of thing. People do sort of zero into the smaller things and can appreciate those when they're facing that part of their life.
Yeah, it's amazing to be part of those sort of conversations.
Very, very privileged.
Yeah, that's probably the right word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Privilege is the right word. It sort of fits in that bill of
certainly
to be a part of that, and then willing to open up in a space of being tender, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, very lucky to do what we do.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thanks again for your interview, Hannah. This is just a small appreciation from Palliative Care Tasmania to you and your team as part of National Palliative Care Week. Just some goodies, some chocolates and all the rest of it. Just
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.